my husband kissed my sister in the very kitchen we grew up in. While I was standing outside the door, holding dinner for all of us, they thought they had destroyed me that night. What they didn't know was that I was about to destroy them both in ways they couldn't even imagine. If you've ever been betrayed by the people you trusted the most, hit that like button and subscribe. This story isn't just about heartbreak. It's about justice, payback, and taking back your power. Hi, my name is Maya, and this is the story of how my life was destroyed and how I destroyed them right back. I've always believed family was everything. Growing up, my dad, Will, used to say, "Blood is thicker than water, Maya. At the end of the day, all we've got is each other." I lived by that. Maybe that's why what happened hurt so much. From the outside, my life looked perfect. I was married to Mark, a man everyone adored. Mark had this way of making people feel like they were the most important person in the room. My friends would always say how lucky I was to have a husband like him. And for years, I believed it. My younger sister, Chloe, was different. Where I was practical and reserved, Chloe was fiery and bold. She had a wild streak that drew people in, but it also caused a lot of chaos. She'd bounce between jobs, boyfriends, and dreams. Dad always worried about her, and I always cleaned up her messes. Mark and Chloe never really got along, or at least that's what I thought. They would bicker whenever we were all together, and Chloe would roll her eyes whenever his name came up. I never suspected that their tension was something else entirely. It all started unraveling one rainy Friday night. Mark had told me he was working late. I didn't think much of it. He often stayed late at the firm. Meanwhile, Chloe had called earlier, saying she was feeling down. She'd just gone through another breakup and asked if she could come over. I decided to surprise her. I made her favorite lasagna and packed some wine, thinking we'd have a cozy night together like we used to when we were kids. Dad even called while I was driving, telling me how proud he was that I always looked after Chloe. I remember smiling, thinking I was doing the right thing. When I reached Chloe's apartment, the lights were on, but the curtains were drawn. I knocked, no answer. I called her phone. No answer. Something felt off. The rain was coming down in sheets, and I was about to leave when I heard laughter. It was faint, muffled through the walls. But I knew that laugh. Mark's laugh. My stomach dropped. My brain immediately tried to rationalize it. Maybe he came here to check on her. Maybe they're just talking. But then I heard Chloe's laugh. Soft. Intimate. The way she used to laugh with her boyfriends. I crept to the side window, where the curtain didn't fully cover the glass. My hands were shaking so badly, I could barely hold my phone. And then I saw them. Chloe was sitting on the kitchen counter, her legs wrapped around Mark's waist. He was kissing her like he'd never kissed me before. His hands were on her face, her hair, like she was his entire world. My breath caught, but no sound came out. I stood there, frozen, rain soaking me to the bone, clutching the lasagna and wine like an idiot. They didn't see me. They didn't hear me. They were too lost in each other. I don't remember how I got back to my car. I don't remember driving home. All I remember is sitting in my driveway for hours, numb, replaying that image over and over until it was burned into my mind. By the time the sun came up, I had made a decision. Mark and Chloe thought they were clever. They thought I would crumble and disappear quietly, leaving them free to be together. But they underestimated me. I wasn't going to confront them. I wasn't going to scream or cry or beg. I was going to take everything from them, piece by piece, until they had nothing left. And the best part? They wouldn't even see it coming. The morning after seeing them together, I didn't sleep a second. My body was running on pure adrenaline and heartbreak. I stood in front of my bathroom mirror, staring at my own reflection. My eyes were bloodshot, my face pale, and there was this strange stillness inside me, like the part of me that loved them both had been ripped out overnight. But beneath that numbness, A quiet, sharp anger began to take shape, not the kind that makes you scream or throw things, but the kind that waits, plans, and strikes when the time is right. I showered, dressed, and went downstairs as if it were any other day when Mark came home around 7, pretending to be exhausted from working late. I didn't let on that anything was wrong. "Hey, babe," he said, dropping his briefcase by the door. His shirt was wrinkled, and there was a faint smell of Chloe's floral perfume clinging to him. I forced a smile, my stomach churning. "Hey, long night?" He sighed dramatically, rubbing the back of his neck. "Yeah, the Peterson account is killing me. I might have to stay late again tomorrow." I nodded like the fool he thought I was. "Don't work too hard." Inside, I wanted to scream. I wanted to claw his smug face and shout, "I know where you really were." But instead, I kissed his cheek and went to make him breakfast, all while memorizing every lie that dripped from his mouth. That was the first test, and I passed it. If I could fool him, I could fool anyone. Over the next few weeks, I perfected my act. I smiled, laughed, and even went on date nights with Mark, while secretly gathering information. I tracked his credit card statements, quietly copied his emails, and learned every detail about his firm's finances. Mark worked for a mid-sized investment company, and he'd recently been given access to a major client account. Millions of dollars, moving in and out every day. He loved bragging about it over dinner, talking about how this account would secure his promotion. He didn't realize that by talking, he was giving me exactly what I needed to destroy him professionally. But it wasn't just Mark I had to worry about. Chloe started acting strange too. She would call me with fake stories about being busy with friends, while secretly seeing Mark. She'd ask about my schedule, trying to figure out when I'd be home or out. At first, it was almost funny. They thought they were outsmarting me, but they were as predictable as children sneaking cookies before dinner. Then, one night Dad called me. "Maya," he said, his voice serious. "Chloe's been off lately. Is everything okay with her?" My heart clenched. Dad adored Chloe. He'd always been softer with her than with me. If he ever found out what she was doing, it would break him. I forced a light laugh. "She's fine, Dad. You know Chloe. Always dramatic. She'll be okay," he sighed. "I hope so. I worry about her. And about you. You've been quiet lately." Quiet. That was an understatement. After I hung up, I realized something important. I wasn't just avenging myself. I was protecting Dad. He didn't deserve to have his heart shattered by Chloe's betrayal. That night, while Mark snored beside me, I started outlining my plan in a hidden notebook. Step 1. Financial destruction. I would gather enough evidence to tie Mark to a fake embezzlement scheme. With the right paper trail, his career would implode, and no one would ever trust him with money again. Step 2. Social ruin. Chloe thrived on being the center of attention. She needed people to see her as glamorous and desirable. I would carefully plant seeds of gossip and suspicion until her reputation crumbled. Step 3. The reveal. When the time was right, I would make sure they both realized exactly who had destroyed them. But first, I needed proof of the affair, something undeniable. One Friday, Mark said he had to work late again. Chloe called earlier that day, saying she was going to a yoga retreat. The lies were so transparent, I almost laughed. I waited until dark, then drove to Chloe's apartment. This time, I parked 2 blocks away and walked quietly to her building. Through the window, I saw them again. Only this time, it wasn't just kissing. Mark was shirtless. Chloe was draped over him, and they were laughing, drinking wine, completely at ease. I took out my phone and recorded everything. My hands shook, but I forced myself to keep steady. This video wasn't just evidence. It was a weapon, As I drove home, my phone buzzed. A text from Chloe. "Miss you, sis. Hope we can hang out soon. Love you." My vision blurred with rage. The audacity of her words almost made me swerve off the road. But then I smiled. Let her think she was winning. The longer they believed they were safe, the harder the fall would be when I finally pulled the rug out from under them. I didn't sleep that night, but it wasn't from grief this time. It was anticipation. Because now, the game had truly begun. The next morning, Mark was unusually chipper. He whistled while making coffee, humming some song he probably played while driving to Chloe's. It was like my pain didn't even exist to him. "Big weekend plans?" I asked casually, pretending to scroll through my phone. He grinned, leaning against the counter. "Maybe. Thinking about a golf trip with the guys next weekend." Clear my head, I raised an eyebrow, feigning interest. "Oh, which guys?" Mark hesitated for half a second. Too quick for anyone else to notice. But I caught it. You know, Jason, Kyle, the usual crew. "Sounds fun," I said, smiling warmly. Inside my heart was ice. I knew exactly where he'd be, wrapped around my sister, feeding her the same lies he gave me. The second he left for work, I got to mine. I needed leverage, and fast. For weeks, I'd been quietly logging into our shared bank account, monitoring every transaction. Mark was sloppy. He used the same passwords for everything. Through his emails, I discovered he'd been using company funds to cover lavish gifts for Chloe. Jewelry, spa weekends, designer clothes, all under the guise of client entertainment. The man was practically handing me the rope to hang him with. I created a separate folder on my laptop labeled Tax Docs. Innocuous enough if he ever stumbled across it. Inside, I organized every piece of damning evidence. Receipts for expensive dinners charged to the firm. Invoices for luxury purchases shipped to Chloe's address. Screenshots of his emails to Chloe, disguised as business memos. Each file was a brick in the wall I was building to trap him. But I couldn't move too quickly. If Mark suspected, even for a second, that I was onto him, he'd cover his tracks. So I played my part to perfection. At dinner, I asked about his day, laughed at his jokes, even reached across the table to squeeze his hand like the loving wife I used to be. And every night, while he slept peacefully beside me, I plotted his downfall. Meanwhile, Chloe had been quieter than usual. Normally, she'd flood my phone with updates about her life, mostly dramas of her own making. But now, just a few vague texts, always sprinkled with fake affection. "Miss you, sis. Can't wait to have a girls' night soon. Love you so much. You're the best sister ever." I wanted to throw my phone across the room each time I read her words. But I knew what she was doing. She was trying to keep me unsuspecting. The irony was almost poetic. She thought she was playing me, when really, I was playing her. One evening, Dad invited me over for dinner. Will had been lonely since Mom passed, and I tried to visit him often. That night, though, I almost didn't go. Until I realized how important it was to maintain my image of normalcy. When I arrived, the smell of roast chicken and garlic bread filled the air. For a brief moment, I felt like a kid again, walking into a safe, loving home. Dad greeted me with a warm hug. "Hey kiddo, you look tired. Everything okay?" I forced a smile. "Just busy with work." We sat at the table, chatting about his garden and neighborhood gossip. But eventually, his tone shifted. "Maya," he said carefully, "I've been worried about Chloe." My stomach tightened. "Why?" She seems distracted, distant, like she's hiding something. He frowned, stirring his mashed potatoes absent-mindedly. "I don't want to pry, but have you noticed anything?" My throat went dry. For a second, I considered telling him everything. But the image of Dad's face, when he found out his youngest daughter was betraying me, betraying us, stopped me cold. I shook my head. Nothing serious. You know Chloe. She's probably just stressed. Dad sighed. I hope you're right. You've always been the strong one, Maya. The steady one. I want both my girls to be okay. His words were like a knife in my heart. For a brief moment, I almost faltered. Almost. But then I remembered the image of Mark and Chloe, tangled together on that kitchen counter, laughing like I didn't exist. I swallowed my emotions and smiled at Dad. We'll be okay, Dad. I promise. As the weeks passed, I noticed small cracks forming between Mark and Chloe. During a phone call I secretly recorded, Chloe's tone was sharp, frustrated. You said you'd leave her by now. Mark, what are you waiting for? Mark's voice was low, almost pleading. I just need more time. If I leave too quickly, it'll raise suspicion. Trust me, baby, we have to be careful. Baby. The word made my stomach churn, but Chloe wasn't buying it. Careful. Or cowardly. Maybe I should just tell Maya myself. I grinned in the darkness of my office, listening to their little cracks widen. Perfect. The more impatient Chloe became, the more reckless she'd be, and recklessness was something I could exploit. The following weekend, Mark claimed he had another work trip. This time I followed him. Careful, discreet, keeping several cars between us. He drove not to a hotel or office, but to a lakeside cabin Chloe had rented. Through my binoculars, I watched them unload bags, laughing and kissing like they were some romantic movie couple. This time, I didn't just film them. I took photos of every detail. The rental agreement under Chloe's name, the cabin number, even the wine bottles they brought inside. By the end of the night, I had a timeline, location, and visual proof of their affair. When I drove home, I passed a roadside diner and stopped for coffee. As I stirred sugar into my cup, an idea struck me. A way to accelerate their downfall. Up until now, I'd been quietly gathering evidence. But what if I pushed them into making a mistake? What if I set a trap so perfect they'd walk right into it, thinking it was their idea all along? I left the diner with a new plan swirling in my mind. Because destroying them wasn't enough. I wanted them to destroy each other. That night, I barely slept, but this time it wasn't from anger or heartbreak. It was from the thrill of having absolute control. I lay in bed beside Mark, staring at the ceiling, listening to his even breathing. He was completely oblivious, dreaming beside me, like the devoted husband he pretended to be. If only he knew what I was about to do. The key to a perfect trap is making your target believe they're safe, right up until the moment they realize they're doomed. So, I decided to plant seeds of doubt in both Mark and Chloe's minds. Carefully, subtly, until they started tearing each other apart without even knowing I was behind it. The first seed I planted was aimed at Chloe. I created a fake email address using a random name and sent her a message late at night. Does Maya know? She deserves the truth. People are starting to talk. No signature, no details, just enough to make her paranoid. The next morning, she texted me like nothing had happened, but I knew that message was eating away at her. Chloe thrived on control and attention, the idea that someone out there knew her secret and might tell me, would gnaw at her relentlessly. For Mark, my approach was different. One evening, while he was in the shower, I slipped his phone from the nightstand and added a fake contact labeled Client Peterson. Then I sent a cryptic text to his phone from another burner number I'd set up. Need to discuss the unauthorized withdrawals. Call me ASAP. When Mark got out of the shower, I pretended to be scrolling through my tablet while secretly watching him. He froze when he saw the message. Damn it, he muttered under his breath. I tilted my head innocently. Something wrong? He forced a smile, sliding the phone into his pocket. Just work stuff. Nothing to worry about. But the tension in his shoulders told me everything I needed to know. He was rattled. Good. Let him sweat. Let him wonder if someone was onto him at work, while Chloe panicked about someone being onto their affair. The walls were closing in, and neither of them knew I was the one tightening them. Over the next few days, I carefully stoked their paranoia. For Chloe, I sent another anonymous email. I saw you at the cabin last weekend. Does Mark know I took pictures? I knew she'd immediately think of me, but she couldn't be sure. The brilliance of the plan was that if she confronted me, I'd act completely clueless, which would only deepen her suspicion of others. Sure enough, she called me the next day, her voice tense but fake sweet. Hey Maya, how are you? I'm good, I said casually, slicing vegetables for dinner. You? Oh, you know, busy, 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 she said, forcing a laugh. Then after a pause, so, random question. You haven't been by the lake recently, have you? I almost laughed, but I kept my tone neutral. The lake? No, why? Oh, no reason, just thought I saw someone who looked like you out there last weekend. I chuckled. Nope, not me. I was home all weekend. The silence on the other end was delicious. I could almost hear her grinding her teeth. Right, of course, she said quickly. Anyway, I have to run. Love you. Love you too, I said, and hung up, grinning like a wolf. Meanwhile, Mark was unraveling in his own way. He started snapping at little things, misplacing his keys, spilling coffee, even complaining about his co-workers. At dinner one night, I noticed his hands trembling slightly as he cut his steak. Long day, I asked innocently. Yeah, he said, rubbing his temples. Peterson's been on my back about these accounts. There's some kind of discrepancy. I don't know what's going on. I widened my eyes like a concerned wife. Oh no, that sounds stressful. He exhaled sharply. I'll fix it. I just need to figure out who's screwing with me. I reached across the table, squeezing his hand. You will, babe. You always do. Inside, I was laughing. Oh, Mark, you have no idea who's screwing with you. While they were busy spiraling, I focused on the next phase of my plan, legal and financial preparation. I secretly opened my own bank account in another state and started quietly moving small amounts of money into it. Nothing that would raise suspicion. Next, I contacted a lawyer I trusted and asked very specific, hypothetical questions about divorce, asset division, and business fraud. I didn't tell her my situation directly, but by the end of our conversation, I had a roadmap for exactly how to protect myself while leaving Mark exposed. I also met with a private investigator under the guise of a friend needing help. For a fee, he dug up everything on Chloe's background, her debts, unpaid bills, even a few shady flings she probably thought no one knew about. Each piece of dirt was another weapon in my growing arsenal. By now, my tax docs folder was practically overflowing. The breaking point came sooner than I expected. One Thursday evening, I was cooking dinner when Chloe showed up at my door, unannounced. She was dressed impeccably, like she always was, but her eyes were wild and restless. Maya, we need to talk, she said, brushing past me into the house. My heart raced, but I forced myself to stay calm. Of course, what's going on? She spun around glaring at me. Someone's messing with me. I keep getting these emails. Creepy, anonymous messages. And now, Mark's acting weird too. Do you know anything about this? I widened my eyes, playing the perfect confused sister. What? No! Chloe, that sounds awful. What kind of messages? She hesitated, studying my face like she could read my thoughts. Then she pulled out her phone and shoved it at me. The email was one of mine. Does Maya know? She deserves the truth. I gasped dramatically. Oh my God, Chloe, this is terrifying. Who would send you something like that? She paced the living room, running her hands through her hair. I don't know, but someone clearly knows something. And if they tell Mark… She cut herself off, realizing her slip too late. I tilted my head, pretending to be puzzled. Tell Mark what? Her face went pale. Nothing. Forget it. Inside, I was savoring every second. She was cracking, and it was beautiful. After she left in a whirlwind of nerves and perfume, Mark came home barely an hour later. The moment he saw me, he blurted out, "Have you noticed Chloe acting strange lately?" I almost laughed out loud. Oh, this is too perfect. Strange how? I asked innocently. She's been jumpy, secretive. And today at work, I got this message. He pulled out his phone, showing me the fake text I'd sent him earlier about the unauthorized withdrawals. I covered my mouth in shock. Mark, that's serious. Do you think someone's framing you? His eyes darkened. I don't know, but if I find out who it is… His voice trailed off, some full of barely contained rage. That was my moment of clarity. They were both suspicious, both paranoid, and both on the verge of exploding. But they weren't looking at me. They were looking at each other, exactly as I'd planned. That night, while they slept in their respective beds, convinced they were outsmarting everyone, I sat at my desk under a single lamp. I opened my laptop and began drafting 2 documents. One was a fake financial report implicating Mark in embezzlement. The other was a carefully worded letter addressed to Chloe, hinting that Mark was planning to abandon her and return to me. These 2 documents would be the final match tossed into the pile of kindling I'd been building for weeks. When the fire caught, it would consume them both and leave me standing alone in the ashes, victorious. The following week, everything came to a head. By now, Chloe and Mark were both so paranoid, so on edge, that I barely needed to push anymore. A single whisper would be enough to send them spiraling. I decided to strike on a Friday. The same day of the week I first caught them together. There was something poetic about ending it where it began. That morning, I woke up early and made Mark breakfast. Pancakes, bacon, coffee. His favorites. He didn't suspect a thing. In fact, he seemed almost relieved, as if he thought his recent lies had gone unnoticed. As he left for work, kissing my cheek, I smiled sweetly and said, "Have a great day, babe. Tonight's going to be unforgettable." He grinned, completely oblivious to what I really meant. The moment he drove off, I set my plan into motion. I drove to Mark's office, carrying a sleek black folder filled with the fake financial report I'd created. It detailed evidence of unauthorized withdrawals from his firm's biggest account, with fake signatures and timestamps carefully forged to point directly to him. I slipped it into the locked drop box outside the building, a box reserved for sensitive client documents. By the time anyone opened it, Mark would be at home with Chloe, far away from any chance to defend himself. Then I drove straight to Chloe's apartment. She wasn't home. Perfect. I'd stolen a copy of her key weeks earlier, knowing this day would come. Inside, her apartment smelled like her expensive perfume and desperation. I left the letter on her kitchen counter, perfectly positioned, where she'd see it the moment she walked in. It read, "Chloe, Mark is playing you. He told me he's only with you for fun, that he'll come back to me once he secures his promotion. He says you're a liability, and he's done with your drama. Don't let him ruin you the way he's ruined me." No signature, no proof, just venom designed to ignite every insecurity Chloe had. That evening, I made sure to be out of sight when the bomb went off. Chloe read the letter first. At 6:12 p.m., my phone buzzed with a message from her. "You lying bastard. How dare you use me? I didn't respond. Instead, I opened the tracking app I'd installed on Mark's phone weeks ago. His location showed him at Chloe's apartment, exactly where I needed him to be. Through the tiny microphone on my burner phone, I listened as the fight began. Chloe, what the hell are you talking about? Mark's voice was sharp, defensive. Don't play dumb, Mark! Chloe screamed. You think I don't know? You've been stringing me along, using me while you plan to crawl back to Maya. What? That's insane, he shouted back. Where are you getting this crap? Someone left me a letter. Chloe's voice cracked with rage. They told me everything. How you think I'm a liability. How you're just using me for fun. Mark cursed under his breath. This is ridiculous. You're paranoid. I love you, Chloe. I'm leaving Maya for you, I swear. Oh, really? She snarled. Then why haven't you done it yet, huh? You've been promising for months. I could almost hear Mark sweating through the phone. I told you I need time. If I leave too fast, Maya will suspect something. Chloe let out a bitter laugh. Oh, don't worry about Maya. She already knows. I'm gonna tell her myself. That was my cue to turn off the mic. I didn't need to hear any more, because now they were at each other's throats and completely distracted from what was about to happen next. At 8:30 p.m., the firm opened the Dropbox and found the folder implicating Mark in massive embezzlement. By 9:00 p.m., Mark's boss was blowing up his phone with calls he couldn't answer because Chloe was still screaming at him. By 9:30 p.m., police were dispatched to his house with a warrant to seize his personal files and devices. By 10:00 p.m., Mark's career and his carefully curated reputation was finished. I sat in my car outside Chloe's building, watching it all unfold from a safe distance. At 10:15 p.m., Mark stormed out of Chloe's apartment, shirt torn, face red with fury. Chloe followed. Mascara streaked down her cheeks, screaming obscenities at him. You ruined me, Mark, she shrieked, throwing a glass that shattered on the sidewalk. You said we'd have a life together. You promised me everything. Mark spun around, his voice hoarse. You're insane. You've ruined everything, Chloe. Everything. He didn't even make it to his car before 2 police cruisers pulled up, lights flashing. Mark Phillips, an officer barked. You're under arrest for fraud and embezzlement. Chloe froze, her mouth hanging open. Mark's eyes widened in shock. What? No, this is a mistake. But it was no mistake. It was my masterpiece. As they handcuffed him and read his rights, I quietly filmed from my car, every detail captured in perfect clarity. Mark screamed at Chloe as they shoved him into the cruiser. This is your fault. Chloe screamed back, no, it's yours. And just like that, the perfect couple they thought they were collapsed in front of the entire neighborhood. In the weeks that followed, everything unraveled. Mark was fired, blacklisted from every firm in the city. The charges were dragged through court for months. But even if he somehow escaped prison, his reputation was dead. Chloe, she became a pariah. Everyone learned about her affair, her debts, and her manipulative behavior. Even Dad found out. I didn't have to tell him directly. The neighborhood gossip did it for me. When he called me, his voice was broken. Maya, I don't understand how your sister could do this to you, he said quietly. I swallowed hard, forcing my own tears down. Neither do I, Dad, but we'll get through it. He sighed. You're stronger than both of them combined. I'm proud of you, kiddo. That meant more to me than anything. A month later, Chloe showed up at my door, looking like a ghost of herself. Her perfect hair was a mess, her clothes wrinkled. Maya, she whispered, please, I have nowhere else to go. Everyone hates me. Mark's ruined. I just need my sister back. For a moment, I stared at her, silent. Then I smiled coldly. You stopped being my sister the night you let him touch you. Her face crumpled. Maya, please. I slammed the door in her face. On the other side, I heard her sobbing, begging, pounding on the wood, and I felt nothing. No sadness, no guilt, just peace. Sometimes people think revenge is about rage, about screaming and breaking things. But true revenge, it's quiet, precise, patient. It's watching the people who tried to destroy you slowly tear themselves apart while you stand, untouched, holding the final piece of their ruin. Mark and Chloe thought they'd stolen my happiness. But in the end, I took everything from them: their love, their reputation, their future. Now when I look back, I realize the truth. Family may be blood, but loyalty, that's a choice. And they chose betrayal. So I chose justice. If this story gave you chills, hit that like button and tell me in the comments what you think was the most satisfying part of their downfall. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories of betrayal and revenge, because sometimes karma needs a little push.